Following on from a previous video I'd made about the X-Pro1, I thought I'd follow that up with some thoughts on the pros and cons. I was trying to figure out what it is I really like about this camera, because it is one of my favourite cameras. And so I thought I'd put together what I think is the list of what I consider to be the pros and cons. I'm going to start with the cons, because there are a few. It is quite an old camera in digital terms now, I guess. Launched in 2012, I believe. So it is a bit dated. There are some aspects of it which, people would consider to be out of date now. I guess the sensor is quite old, although I think that first generation X-Trans sensor stands up on its own merits as a good sensor. Things like along the dated lines, things like the autofocus on this probably not as quick as definitely not as quick as some of the newer cameras. So, but yeah, I think that's not such a big issue because of the type of camera it is. Tends to encourage you to work a little bit more carefully, a little bit more slowly, perhaps. Probably not a sports camera, a sports or wildlife camera, I guess. Although I'm sure you could do it, but it's probably not great. So generally, it's a little bit dated. That's my first con. One thing that I found, or did find for a long time to be what I found annoying, is that it's has the first set of film simulations from Fuji. So the ones you get in there are Provia, Velvia, things like that, and some black and white stuff and blah 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 blah. But there have been film simulations released since this camera came out that I quite like and like to mess around with, things like Acros and Classic Chrome. So I find it's an annoyance that you can use the same software, the same Fuji Silky Pick software for both this camera and more recent Fuji cameras, and the more recent ones you can use those newer film simulations, and this camera you can't. Well, at least not without some kind of hacking of the raw files, which I now do. So, and I'll perhaps make a separate video about that, because it's actually, as long as you can get the right software and you know what you're doing, it's pretty simple to do it. So it's good. It's good to be able to do that. But it is annoying that Fuji don't allow you to use the film simulations from the more recent cameras on these older bodies. The body itself is, for me, it's fairly large, I suppose. It's a fairly large kind of digital camera, which is fine. But it probably is, just is big for what it is, I guess. Maybe considered to be a con. It could be a pro for some people. For me, it's probably, I've put it down as a con, but it's probably neither one nor the other. One thing that is a little bit of a con is the fixed screen on the back, not tilting in any way at all, is a bit limiting in some situations. Can be very awkward to see the screen. So that's a bit, probably comes back to it just being a bit of a dated body, really. Doesn't bother me too much, but it's not great. Next con, I've not numbered these, but next con is battery life isn't fantastic. It's okay-ish. And I always carry a spare battery because it can run down quite quickly, but it's okay. But it's not brilliant. And my last con on the list is the lack of an inbuilt diopter correction. So you have to buy an accessory lens if you want to correct the diopter to match your eyesight. That's definitely a bit of a pain. Once you've got it and you've got it in place, well, you can just forget about it, just leave it. But it's a nuisance having to do that, really. On to the pros. And I think actually my list of pros is shorter but more important, obviously, and that's why I keep the camera. One thing I love about the camera is the ergonomics. Really simple to use. In the hand it feels really nice. It feels solid. Yeah, it feels like a great quality camera, and I love that about it. I just love the feel of the thing. And having the eyepiece, the viewfinder on the corner, it's just, your nose isn't up against the screen all the time. It is nice. It's a nice layout. And of course, that sort of feeds into the style of it. It is a beautiful thing to look at. It's a beautiful piece of engineering. A really nice camera. Looks really nice, which is maybe important to some people and not to others. To me, I do like a camera to look nice. It is very simple. It's a very simple camera to use. All the buttons I use and dials, they're all sitting there. As I've said on previous menus, as I said on previous videos, I almost never go into the menu system on this camera. Main reason I ever go into the menu system is to format the card. So yeah, not much use for the menus. Of course, what this body does give you is access to the X-mount Fuji lenses, which are fantastic. I don't think they make a lens that's not good. Some of the kit lenses people will say are not fantastic, and that's probably true. If you were to test them in the lab, you'd probably think, not perfect. But equally, if you're willing to spend the money, they do some really good kit lenses, or kit style zoom lenses as well as superb prime lenses. I've found all the lenses to be really good, and I'm really pleased with the lenses that I have for it. Perhaps I'll go through those in a different video as well. I don't have a lot of lenses for it, but or not a lot of Fuji lenses. I have some of the third-party lenses as well. But yeah, the lenses they do make are great quality, although the one I use most of the time on this body, the 18mm f2, is noisy. Noisiest focusing lens I've probably ever heard, but works a treat. And it was serviced by Fujifilm probably a year ago, so the lens is as it should be, works perfectly, beautiful piece of kit, as are all of the Fuji lenses. They're really nice. That one's a bit noisy, that's all. So I think those are my pros and cons. I know there were a few cons there, but for me, the pros still far outweigh that entire list of cons, and I love the camera. Love using it. I think it's brilliant. If I could only have one Fujifilm camera, would it be this one, or would it be my X-T20? That's too hard. I've got to keep them both. Such is life.